it won't turn over to sleet, freezing rain until sometime tomorrow after 2 in the afternoon, and be, you know, some snow, freezing rain between 2 to 4, and then turn to all snow tomorrow after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then, you know, whatever, and then, but snow accumulation of like, I think it didn't even give a total of how much snow we could end up with, or what, you know, what they're predicting for that. So, I don't know, right now, the problem is gonna be this, the temperature right now is about 41 degrees. The overnight low temperature is supposed to be 31. Well, when it gets, you know, you have all this rain and moisture and everything, and that the temperature drops, that's not going to necessarily be a drastic enough change to really freeze everything. So who knows what it's going to be like in the morning when you get up. So it could be a situation where we come to school, and then later throughout the day it begins to snow, and then by the time we leave there's a little bit of snow and stuff on the roads, but it's not that big a deal. So whether or not the current superintendent would cancel just based on the forecast, who knows? So right now I think the best odds are it's a 50-50 chance that we're going to have school tomorrow. Either we will or we won't. So
50-50, let's go.
You know, that's,
I think like 70%.
you what?
I'm staying up late. Just in case. Just in case.
Don't want to take that chance of missing out on is that your argument with mom and dad?
Yeah.
Well, I should stay up late, because what if we don't have school tomorrow? Then I missed out on a day.
Yeah.
I'm like up in my room until like, because 5 in the morning, lights on, they don't care. I had a 2 hour delay Tuesday, and they got every Wednesday, he's not sure.
So we'll see what happens with the weather. Does anybody who was not here yesterday or did not turn this paper in yesterday have this paper to turn in to me today?
That thing's crooked the other video.
So everybody turned this in yesterday, or? Yeah.
My back itches.
Well, hopefully you managed to get a lot accomplished yesterday. That's the whole concept and reasoning behind a work day, to just try to get as much done as you possibly can, so that makes it easier to go through things and whatever. So, guess we're going to go ahead and we'll pick up there on question number 7 and go from there. So, Sherry, you start right.
Yeah.
Really, so it records the whole conversation.
Yeah.
It's only been 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Well, see, I didn't want to have to get back up, I'm so lazy.
34th and 5. 7th grade.
That thing is crooked.
Alright, so question number 7 is kind of like a continuation of what went on with our discussion on Tuesday, the Red Scare, the fear in America with the growth of immigrants, and the fact that these immigrants could be tied to more radical political ideas. And the case of Sacco and Vanzetti kind of embodies the mindset of the American people of being afraid of immigrants who were connected with radical political ideas. Now here's a picture of the two men, you can see. And who were these guys? Yes, all
Italian immigrants.
yeah, they were Italian immigrants, and what were they accused of or put on trial for? Austin?
Robbery and murder.
Alright, they were accused of robbery and murder, a shoe factory in Braintree, Massachusetts. 1921, the paymaster was killed and robbed on a Saturday morning. And these two men ended up being arrested and charged with the crime. They were convicted, which means found guilty, and their punishment was Okay, so they were executed then in 1927. If you read question number 8, because it seems that some people skipped question number 8 in a few other classes because it seemed like a question, oh, this is a question that's too long, I'm not going to do it. But if you read question number 8 and did question number 8, what are some of the things that you learned about this trial and about these two men? Yeah.
That they were heavily biased against.
Okay, the trial was very biased against them. The judge in the trial, there are derogatory terms that you can use for different races and different ethnic groups, different religions, the N-word and, words for Jews and words for this group and that group. And there's a derogatory term for Italians. And the judge in this case used that term over and I don't want to tell you. I'm not gonna,
Because of the.
no, I don't tell people it period. Anyway, I'm not going to teach you derogatory names to call people.
Now I gotta look it up.
Go ahead. You look it up and you can share with us if you would like.
Will I get in trouble?
No.
Yeah, he's just gonna write you up.
You were going to say?
I was gonna say that they were viewed as Italian, like they were Italian radicals, and that was, because they were Italian radicals, they were seen as immediately guilty.
Alright, so the guilt and their conviction of robbery and murder may have been more based on the fact that they were immigrants and that they had radical political beliefs, not that there was just overwhelming evidence against them to be proven guilty. Anything else that you learned from question number 8? Now, so when you summarize exactly what these two men and gentlemen have talked about, yeah, the trial seems to be more about their political views than their actual guilt. During the trial, when Nicola Sacco took the stand, he was asked about his political views, which probably wasn't really relevant to the case at hand, but it was something that the prosecutor asked in order to make him look bad. Now here's what you gotta understand about these two men, and what was going on with the Red Scare. It wasn't like people in America were just paranoid conspiracy theorists freaking out for no reason. There was some activity of a few radical groups in 1919, 1920. A lot of times that activity was focusing on judges and police chiefs in different cities around the United States where radical groups would send letter bombs or send bombs in the mail to them. And Nicola Sacco was part of one of those groups. He was very active in radical politics. He was mainly responsible for transporting explosive goods to different places. He did make a couple trips into Ohio, more into the southeastern part of Ohio. In 1917, he left the country and went to Mexico because he didn't want to get drafted. So there's no doubt that he was a radical in his political views. He was a socialist. Vanzetti too was a socialist, not nearly as active really, and he just was an acquaintance of Sacco's, and the two men were together when they were arrested. They had worked together at the shoe factory, so they didn't know each other, but it wasn't like they were best buds hanging out all the time. So the Red Scare was based on some realities. There's a story of a judge in Chicago who a group sent a package bomb to his home. And he goes out on his front porch and sees the package delivered by the Postal Service, and he opens it up and it explodes. Destroyed his home, and they found body parts of his like 50 yards away from the site of the explosion. I mean, it was a very powerful bomb, and so I mean, there were groups that were doing things that were making it appear as if there was people trying to overthrow the government. How much evidence they had against these two men? Not really sure. So the conviction is usually, it seems to be based more on their beliefs than their actual guilt in this crime. In 1927, when they were executed, there were protests in cities around the world outside of United States embassies. The whole world was paying attention to this trial and protested when these two men were executed. In 1986, the governor of Massachusetts, Michael Dukakis, gave Sacco and Vanzetti a full pardon for this crime. What does that mean? Just said, if I said he gave them a full pardon, that means,
Pretty much let them free and.
yeah. Well, he couldn't let them free because they were dead.
Yeah,
but- Okay. Yeah, basically in 1986, the state of Massachusetts said, hey, 59 years ago when we executed those two men for robbery and murder, they were probably innocent. We're sorry we killed them.
If that works.
Huh?
If that works.
Right.
Don't they have to pay money to the family or something?
Hmm?
Don't they have to pay money to the family or something?
I don't know if there was any financial money paid to the families in that case or not. Could have been, but I don't recall. It was, at least it wasn't part of the story that I read about Sacco and Vanzetti and their exoneration. So this is question number 8. Hopefully you've gone through all this. So I'm not going to go into all those questions. So, all right. 18th Amendment. We all know the 18th Amendment was about what? Alright, so all about the prohibition. It prohibited the manufacture, sale, and you could add consumption, I guess, of alcoholic beverages. So it's illegal to make, sell, or consume alcohol in the United States. Now here's the interesting thing about this amendment. The passage of the 18th Amendment represents an extension of federal power into activities formerly regulated by states. What does that mean? Sounds fancy, but what does it mean?
Really, the states regulate whether or not you can drink and manufacture it.
Okay, so up until the 18th Amendment, alcohol sales, consumption, and making were left up to each individual state to determine the rules and procedures or laws for alcohol in those states. The 18th Amendment takes that away and says no alcohol, period.
How dare they?
Huh?
How dare they?
Yeah. Now, but the thing is, if you understand America's system of government called federalism, we have the federal government, we have state governments, and we have local governments. And there are certain laws that come from Washington, D.C. that everybody in America has to follow, period. There are then laws that come from Columbus that only people in Ohio have to follow. So laws in Ohio concerning some things might be different than laws in Indiana, Michigan, Pennsylvania, or Kentucky, or wherever. And then we have the Blanchester government and our city, village, and the laws that they pass. It could be a law about something in Blanchester, but not a law for that in Wilmington. So the power to pass laws on certain issues is divided up. And in some cases, it could even be county by county, depending on what the situation we're talking about. Yeah?
Would curfew come from the city?
No, curfew is a village or a city by city thing. It's up to each city to determine what they feel a good curfew could be.
What's our curfew again?
I don't know.
11.
Yeah.
They're trying to change
I know, Land's got curfews, but I don't think Midland's got one.
Well, does Midland even have a city government?
I think so.
No.
All right.
Thanks.
I just walk around.
But the people of Midland might be, if the county sheriff, if there's a county-wide curfew, but I don't think there is, so that's, because doesn't the Clinton County Sheriff's Office maintain jurisdiction over Midland?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so they can't enforce, if there's no county curfew, then Midland would have to have a curfew. Yeah.
Yeah, say like Blanchester wanted to pass a law, would they have to go through the county to pass it first?
It depends on what the law is.
Oh, alright.
It all depends. I mean, like, the Blanchester cannot pass a law that goes against Ohio law or federal law. So like the city of Blanchester couldn't pass a law that you're allowed to own fully automatic weapons. Or you can buy a grenade launcher or something.